Picture this. You've just handed over a serious chunk of your hard-earned cash for a crucial insurance policy, only to find out later that the person who sold it to you? Yeah, they had absolutely zero legal authority to do so. Welcome to this explainer on how to verify an insurance agent's license in California. We're going to unpack exactly how you can use official state databases to ensure the professional you're working with is actually legitimate.
So I have to ask, is your insurance agent actually licensed? It sounds like a pretty simple question, right? But the implications are massive, because if they aren't properly licensed, you aren't just looking at potential regulatory fines for them. You could be facing voided policy bindings and massive financial exposure for yourself. Honestly, when disaster strikes, the absolute last thing you want is an insurance company telling you your policy is completely invalid just because your agent wasn't legally authorized to bind the coverage.
To make sure you never find yourself in that awful position, here is our roadmap. Number 1, the value of verification. 2, a step-by-step lookup guide. 3, decoding the license profile. 4, common pitfalls and tips. And 5, our conclusion and disclaimer. Let's dive in.
Section 1. The value of verification and protecting your policies.
Let's start with why this really matters. Verifying a license is way more than just some bureaucratic box you need to check. Think of it as both your defensive shield and your offensive sword. Drawing a bit of inspiration from California's strict legal codes against unlicensed contractors, as a shield, this verification protects you from fraud and incompetent advice. And as a sword? Well, it ensures legal compliance, virtually guaranteeing that the contracts you sign are fully enforceable under California law.
Let's talk about the real-world consequences for a second, because this really builds the case for why you need to be vigilant. If your agent lacks the proper authority, your policies could literally be invalidated. Poof, gone. Every single state requires agents to hold active licenses for specific product lines. Without them, you're risking exposure to outright fraud, invalidated carrier contracts, and ultimately some pretty severe financial loss. You do not want to be left holding the bag when you need coverage the most.
Section 2. Step-by-step lookup guide. Navigating the registry.
Okay, now for the practical part, how you actually find this information. There is a precise 4-step process that regulatory compliance officers use to audit an insurance professional's credentials, and we're going to use it too. It's a super straightforward workflow. First, you gather the agent's details. Second, you head over to the California Department of Insurance portal. Third, you execute the search. And fourth, if they happen to operate across state lines, you check the National Registry. Let's break these down. Step 1 is all about preparation. Before you even open your web browser, you absolutely must demand these specific details from your agent: their full legal name, their California license number, their national producer number, or NPN for short, and the specific lines of authority they claim to hold, like life, health, or property and casualty. Listen, if they hesitate at all to provide this basic professional information, that is an immediate, glaring red flag.
Once you've got that info in hand, you go straight to the source. The authoritative source for local verification is the official California Department of Insurance, or CDI, portal, which you can find at insurance.ca.gov. Specifically, you're looking for their Check a License feature. This is the definitive, live database for anyone doing insurance business inside the state of California.
Section 3. Decoding the license profile. Beyond active.
So, you've plugged in their number, right? And their profile pops up on your screen. Here is the absolute most crucial point of this entire explainer. Simply seeing the word active is not the end of your audit. In fact, it's just the beginning. A truly comprehensive search means you have to analyze these specific metrics on their profile. You need to verify their licensing status, sure, but also their approved lines of authority, their active carrier appointments, and you absolutely must check for any history of disciplinary actions. Why? Because a gap in literally any of these areas, even if the main license says active, can lead to a totally voided policy.
First off, let's look at the basic status. Finding an active status confirms basic compliance. It just means they've paid their fees and they've met California's pretty strict continuing education requirements, which usually includes some mandatory ethics training. On the flip side, terms like expired, suspended, canceled, or revoked represent an immediate bar to transacting business. I mean it, they absolutely cannot legally execute contracts if you see any of those words tied to their name.
Now, what's really critical to understand here is what legally binds an insurance company to you. Having an active license with the right line of authority is actually legally insufficient to bind coverage if there is no active carrier appointment on file.
Under California law, the insurance company itself has to submit a formal notice appointing that licensee as its agent. That specific document is what validates that the insurer actually assumes liability for the agent's transactions. No appointment, no coverage.
And there's one more layer you need to know about if your agent works for a larger firm. Agents operating on behalf of a corporate agency must have an active business entity endorsement. This links their individual license directly to that corporate entity. Compliance officers always verify both the individual's appointments and the agency's structural endorsements, because believe it or not, these can actually lapse entirely independently of one another.
Section 4. Common pitfalls and tips. Avoiding verification errors. Let's shift gears to a few common traps people fall into during this lookup process so you can avoid them. One of the biggest points of confusion is mixing up the identifiers. Do not confuse the NPN with the state license number. The National Producer Number is a nationwide, lifelong identifier used to track multi-state activity on the national NIPR database. But the state license number, that's a local state-specific identifier, usually 6 to 8 alphanumeric characters in California, and it's used exclusively for local compliance on the CDI portal. You've got to use the right number for the right database.
So here are your actionable tips for a completely bulletproof verification. First, search entries exactly as they are spelled. The CDI system can be super sensitive, and a simple typo is going to give you a false negative. Second, always scroll down to check for enforcement or disciplinary actions. Third, confirm that their specific line of authority matches exactly what you're buying. I mean, you wouldn't buy a life insurance policy from someone who is only licensed in property and casualty, right? And finally, verify they are appointed by the exact insurance carrier that is writing your policy.
Section 5. Conclusion and disclaimer. Final takeaways. All right, let's summarize exactly what you should take away from all this regulatory data. The big overarching lesson here? Always verify before binding a policy. Make it a non-negotiable habit. Utilize both the state CDI portal for those local checks and the NIPR database if they operate nationally. Never, ever just stop at the word active. You have to dig deeper to confirm their specific lines of authority and those all-important active carrier appointments. By following these steps, you literally transform yourself from a vulnerable consumer into an informed client who is fully protected by California's regulatory framework. Please keep in mind that the regulatory landscape and these databases update constantly. The information we've covered today is accurate as of this explainer's creation date in July 2026. Because of that, you must always perform this license check yourself, directly through official state channels, to ensure you are looking at the most current, real-time data available.
We're going to leave you with this final, critical thought. Who is really assuming the liability for your policies? Because if you haven't checked their carrier appointments to ensure an actual insurance company is backing them up, you might not like the answer. So please, don't leave your financial security up to chance. Go check those licenses.